Good morning. This is Debbie with Ancestry and Travels. I'm going to go ahead and start this next video. This video is going to be for people who have done a little bit of family research and that are interested in finding out how to do a deeper search, because there's the basics. For instance, this page that I have open right now, the typical person going into family search to research their family, this is the typical page that you're going to hit search. You're going to go ahead and fill in the first name, the last name. If you know where they were born, you put that in there. And then just for you to understand a better way to search, always go ahead and put in 10 years before the time you think they were born and 10 years after. And the reason I tell you that is because a lot of times, if you've ever worked in a census, in fact, I was just researching a guy the other day. In the census, it said he was 41, but he really was 51. So they were 10 years off on his age. So that happens a lot. You'll find that a lot in census records. It's because the person giving the information may not be the actual person, and they're guessing. So it's really good to always do it at least 10 years each direction so that you don't miss out on records. That's a good point of call for this part of searching. Also, another really good hint for this type of searching is you can go in here and you can just put the last name of the person that you're searching for. And then it gives you down here, it says search with a relationship. It's down towards the bottom on the left. Hit parents and put in the first name of the father and the first name of the mother, if you know those. And then go ahead and search. And it'll bring up any person with that surname that has parents with those first names. And that's a good way to narrow your search, but yet make it broad enough that you have more records to look at, because you may find something. Maybe the first name of the person you're looking for is that he's coming up as his middle name instead of his first name. So this is just a really good way to broaden your search without broadening it too far. Now, if you look up where it says family search, and then you see family tree, search, memories, indexing, temple. Down below that, you'll see records, family tree, genealogies, catalog, books, and the wiki. Those are all different places that you can research in family search. Today we're going to go into records. Not records, to catalog. And you're going to go ahead and where it says search by, and then it says place. For instance, I would put in Knox County, or I would put Ohio. You don't want to put the county yet. You want to just go ahead and put Ohio. It's going to put up some choices, and it'll say Ohio, United States, or United States, Ohio. That's what you're going to want to click on. See how it says it's United States, Ohio? You're going to go ahead and hit search. Then you're going to go in here and it'll bring you to this page. Then to narrow it down, because there's a lot of records in Ohio, because there's a lot of counties in Ohio. But to narrow it down, drill down a little bit farther, you're going to want to go ahead and where it says part of the United States, and it says places within the United States, in that kind of gray box just below the search results. Go ahead and click on places within the United States, Ohio, or whatever state you're looking in, and then see how it gives you all the different counties that you can search within the state of Ohio. I would click on Knox County because that's where my family's from. And then it's going to come up with this whole list of records that they have. I had someone ask me how to search for probate records. Well, this is where you're going to do it. You're going to go in and you're going to click on probate records indexes. And I'm going to show you in just a second what'll come up for you. But it's going to bring up a film, because what they're doing right now at Family Search is they are taking all of the Family History Library in Salt Lake is taking all the reels of film that they have that have records on them. Because since the 1950s or even earlier, they went into each county in every state, and they went and filmed all of their records for free in order for them to have those available for people to go and look at in one place, and also to preserve the records, because I don't in Kentucky there have been so many courthouses and stuff that have been burnt down, and all those records are gone. So hopefully before that happened, they were already filmed by Family Search. But there's a lot of records in here, and sometimes it can be frustrating to go through the films because it'll say it has something and then you can't find it. You just have to be patient sometimes and go page by page, which is long suffering, but it's worth it in the end when you find that record. Once you go into the indexes, you would go to whatever alphabetical, like if you have the name Cook, you'd go into the C's in the index, and then you would go through every page of the C's to find out if you have someone that you're searching for, if they have a will record or a probate record of any type. Different types of probate records that they have the person that's going to be the executor has to go in and sign up and put money down to be the executor. There's the will itself. Then there's also, once the estate, they'll show you the estate records as to what they sold off, who bought what. There's going to be lots of different records. Now, some families have tons of records. My family, on the other hand, isn't as proliferated with records or books. I mean, there's families that have a whole book on their family. Not mine. But anyway, hopefully you'll be more lucky than I have been. But once you get into those indexes, I'm going to show you how you can download that. Let me see if the next slide, no, it doesn't. Anyway, you can go down and you can download those indexes. And I always take a picture of them and download them into my computer, because then I can put that in a folder of indexes and tell me where the index is and what index is for what. Then I can always go back and look at that and say, okay, I want to go look at this will. If I don't want to get all of them right now, I can go back and it's right there at my fingertips. So that's always a good rule of thumb to do. I also have an external hard drive that I store all my genealogy on, because if my computer ever crashed, at least I'd still have my external hard drive. But also because then it doesn't gum up my computer, because I'm a woman that has over 80 gigs of records and books. So I don't want to gum down my computer with that much information. So I always transfer it. I keep it for when I'm working on it right now on my desktop. And then when I'm done with it, I go in and put it into my genealogy files. And I have a whole genealogy file in there that I have the family surnames that I put stuff under. I have wills, a wills file that I put it under each family name. Inside there I have different folders for each family's surname in there. So I try to organize it so that I don't have to be going, I know I have this record, where the heck is it? I can just go in and look at that family and have it. And it took me, trust me, because I didn't organize it until about 5 years ago. Before that, it was ridiculous because I know I'd have something, but where the heck I have it at is, so it's so much better if from the very beginning you start your file in the proper way. Once you've got your index, up at the top of the index, and I remember the first time I looked at a land record index or a will index, it was like, what does all this mean? It's going to have you at the top of the page of that index. It's going to have like wills, and then it's going to say book number, and it'll have an A or a 1, but it'll tell you what will book it's in, and then it'll have page, and that'll tell you what page in that will record book that it's on. Sometimes I've run into that the page wasn't completely correct, but usually if you go back or forward a little bit, you'll find it somewhere within a 100-page area. So I would just not give up, just keep looking until you find it, because it's in there. They wouldn't have it in the index if it wasn't really there. But they weren't necessarily always correct on their pages. Most of the time, but every once in a while. Then also, if you go up, you'll see land and property. So you can go in and look at land records, and they have indexes too. Another thing too is that sometimes you'll get into a record and you'll find out that they actually have an index. The first 15 pages in that film, there's an index. And so sometimes you'll find stuff in there that wasn't necessarily put in the index either. So just kind of play with it, get familiar with it. The more familiar you get with these things, it's so much easier because you learn your way how to navigate through them. You'll see that there's vital records, and you can go into these. Now, one thing, rule of thumb to know, is that sometimes you'll click on these on the light blue writing, and it'll direct you to a book. And sometimes the books are already digitized, but sometimes they aren't. You actually have to go physically to the library in Salt Lake City to get to look at that book. And what I do when I do that is I'll take my phone with me, and rather than run off a bunch of copies, I just take a really good picture with my phone, and then I can download it to my computer when I get home. So I have a digital copy, and I don't have a lot of papers because, trust me, you can get into where you're knee deep in paperwork. Trust me, my kids are not going to be happy when I die because I have 5 or 6 boxes, plastic file boxes full of genealogy paperwork. And I've tried to get that all organized too, but you know how that goes. Sometimes organization is only as good as the organizer. Okay, so on this slide, tax records, I have that highlighted. Tax records, a lot of people I don't know if you don't know about them. I know I didn't know about them until I found them. But tax records is a really good source because you can actually figure out where they had land, because this is telling you that they have land, in what county and when they had it and how many acres they have. And it's just got a lot of really neat information. Plus, it'll show you people with the same given name living close by so that you can kind of realize that this is probably brothers and sisters. Also, it'll have their children who don't own land, but they have property, like they own a cow or a horse or whatever. They have them taxed, and they're also in the tax files too. So they're really a good record for you to have to go in and research because it gives you some good information. I actually went in and mapped out families, the allied families from Donegal, Ireland, from Pennsylvania, where they came to Knox County, Harrison, Coshocton, different counties in Ohio in the northeastern side of Ohio, who had left the southeastern side of Pennsylvania and went into Ohio. That's where they migrated. And so I was able to map those allied families, and it kind of gave me a better picture of who was living around who and what records to look for other people. You'll also get, when you go in to these files, in order to know if you can, they actually have a record that you can go look at. If you'll go over to the far right, it says format. And if you see this camera here, that means that it's actually digitized and that you can go in and look at it as a digitized record. So that's really cool. And it gives you the tax year, so you can click on that little camera and it'll take you into that tax year and let you look at the people that are in the area that you're looking for on that tax year. So these are really helpful. Another thing you can do is go in, once you get in there, you've got all these little the thumbnail pictures. Don't fret. You don't have to figure out from this point. Once you click on one of those thumbnails, it'll bring it up as a full picture for you to view. So see how cool it is to see that picture of that record. So this tells you, this says lands and houses project, and then it to taxation, or public to they're going to be taxed. Let's put it that way. So in Union Township in 1827. So, trust me, the more you read these records, the easier it gets to read them. Because sometimes when I first started, it was like, what does that say? But it's really cool because the more you get into it and you play with it, it's intimidating at first, but the more you do it, the easier it is for you to get into it. Now here, I'm going to go into the will records of 1808 through 1918. Now that's a broad amount of stuff. And the index only goes from 1852 to 1950. This is where you can be grateful because most of the records that don't have indexes in the index, they do have those indexes at the first of the year. Another thing to keep in mind is some of the boxes have more than 1 year in them. So it'll have box A, B, and C in it. So if your record is in box C and you get into here, you can actually go in, and let me see if I've got it here so I can show you. Okay, so see how it says image, and then it has the number 19 of 500 pages. If your box is not the first box that's in there, what you would want to do is, what I would do right here to try to find box C is I would change that number there to 300. And then I would go in to that page 300 and see what page number is on the page. Now, if it's 400 and something or 500 and something or somewhere in the hundreds, you know that you're in the middle of a box. So just kind of, and usually there's 2 pages to every will record or any records in here. They usually take a picture of 2 pages side by side. So it's a good rule of thumb is to say, okay, I need to go 50 more pages, then really I only need to change that number by 25 because it's in duplicates of 2. So you'll learn how to guesstimate where to find what you're looking for. But if you hit page 300 and the page number on the document says page 19, then you know, oh, well, I need to go back about 20 pages and then I'll be in the index. Because that's where you're going to find the indexes, at the end of the first box and the beginning of the second box is where at the very beginning of that new film, there's going to be that index, if there's an index to find. Some of them don't have indexes and they don't have an index to look at. That can be a little daunting. But again, if you go into that index that they actually have the pictures like these with the index, then you're going to find your pages a lot easier. So we're going to go into this will records thing. Now, there's 2 different things you can do. You can click here, okay, and then it's going to bring up this page. You can put the surname in there, first, last name. You can do it that way. But sometimes I've found that they don't come up in that index. They don't have it indexed so that the record could be in there, but it's not going to come up by you searching that way. So another thing you can do is down below it says view images in this collection, and it says browse through 6,997,827 images. Okay, that's a little daunting, but the good news is just like when you, sorry, I don't want to change that yet. The good news is that you go in there, and just like I showed you how to go into the United States and then Ohio, and then go in places within Ohio, the same thing's going to happen when you hit this browse button. You're going to go into this, and then it will actually give you the counties that are included into this browse button. So you'll click on the county that you're looking for, and then it'll come up and give you a list of there'll be indexes in there, within there, and then there'll also be like estate sales or executor this, and then at the very end usually is where it's, because it's usually alphabetized, It'll say will records, and then it'll say what years and such. So you can narrow it down by the years. Just like it shows right here. This is kind of an example. This is, you're going to find a general index in there. You're going to find real records and the box numbers, and so on and so forth. And if you go into the general indexes, that's where you're going to find your indexes for the wills, so that you can take pictures of them. Now, another thing to know, I told you about this format, and it shows the camera. If you ever run into that and you find out that your there's a key on top of the camera, so it's got the camera with a key on top, that is a clue to tell you that you're going to have to go into a family research history library in your area. The LDS Church has churches that have all this stuff that you can go look at without having to go to the Salt Lake main library. All throughout the United States, there are churches, and you just have to go in and Google and say that you want to find a family history library, and then you put what county and stuff that you're in, and it'll tell you where to go into there if you need to do that. But that key on top of the picture means that there is some kind of an agreement with the Family Search Library and whatever state or county or whoever the record's from, that it can only be viewed in a Family Search Library. You can still download the records there. It's just that you can't view it from home, which is kind of a bummer, but that's how it works. Okay, so now you've got your will record, which is really fun to look at those will records. And I know you look at this writing and you say, oh my heck, what does this say? Well, it says, remembered that heretofore, to wit, on the 20th day of January in 1882, an instrument of writing purporting to, I know, it's crazy, the way they speak and everything is very different. But like I promise you, once you start getting into these and reading them more, the more you read them, the more you try to read them, the easier. I sent to Knox County, Ohio, and got my grandfather's estate records, and I tried reading them. I went, what the heck? It was like Greek. But now I can read the whole thing, and it's not a big deal because I've gotten used to how to read the writing from back then. But anyway, this is basically how you go in and do the research. It's going to give you a lot deeper search. It's going to give you more records that you can look at and understand. And it's exciting. Once you get into it, you start finding records. You're going to want to hit the download button here if you want a copy of this will. And then you're going to go ahead. It's going to go into your downloads on your computer. Then you can go in there, and I would go ahead and name that file so you have a record of what it is, because you can get a lot of those in there and go, oh my heck, what is all this? But it's addicting. Once you start downloading records, you want to do it more and more. But it's really awesome because you can find a lot of information in a will. You can find the name of the children. Sometimes if there isn't a will, if you'll go in, and hopefully someday soon, they'll have the chancery reports, which is where the family goes and fights for their part of the estate, which in itself can give you all kinds of information that you wouldn't have gotten any other way. So it's a lot of fun. I can attest to the fact that it's very addicting. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I still find it just exhilarating to find records on my family and to be able to learn more about my predecessors. So happy hunting. Until we meet again, I'll meet you on the flip side on my next video. Have a good day.